I'd like to welcome everybody to the first public meeting for the Western Northridge Stormwater Project. My name is Todd Raleigh, and I'm going to be the project manager. I work within the City of Raleigh Stormwater Management Division. I'd like to introduce the design team from W.K. Dixon. Presenting this evening will be Mark Horseman. To accompany him will be Jennifer Hurd, as well as Alex McMillan. From the City of Raleigh will be myself, David Kiker, Dale Hyatt, and the Stormwater Manager, Wayne Miles. Before we get into the presentation, I would like to just give a quick update on the project. Currently, we're working towards 70% design level with the construction plans. At this point, we'd like to take a look at the alignment and the areas of impact within the project area. We start thinking about easements at this point and what our needs are going to be so we can install the system and maintain that into the future. At this point, we partner with City of Raleigh Real Estate, and they get in touch with the impacted property owners for the easement acquisition portion of the project. This is usually a time-consuming part of the project, and I'm always there to answer any questions regarding easement limits or why this needs to be done or the land needs to be acquired. Along with these easements comes some restrictions on use. Some examples of these restrictions would be fence placement or permanent structures within the confines of the easement. While the easement acquisition process is occurring, the design team is going to be working to complete the final design. At that point, we submit the project for permits, as well as begin to put together a package to put the project out for public bid. As well, at the same time, we're probably going to be looking to have the second public meeting where people will be able to see the final design as it's going to go into the ground. We're thinking that the permits and so on, we're going to have that ready for possibly the end of the year, maybe early next year, and other parts of some other tasks that were mentioned there may not start till early next year. Construction will take place once we have all easements recorded and in hand, as well as permits, and we have a signed construction contract with a company that's going to do the work. We expect construction to take anywhere from 18 to 24 months. We have a project budget for construction of $5.7 million currently. And we're thinking construction is going to start sometime mid to late 2022. Before turning this over to W.K. Dixon, there's just a couple of housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded for those who can't attend or to be replayed at your convenience. There will be a link on the project webpage through the project site, City of Raleigh website. If you do have any questions, if you notice on the lower right-hand part of the screen, there's a little chat box. You can go ahead and click on that. You can pick a panelist and direct a question. I've been chosen to be that person. You can direct it to me, Todd Raleigh, and we'll answer those questions after the presentation. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Horseman with W.K. Dixon.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate the opportunity to speak about this project and to work with you to kind of discuss the overall intent of the project and what we're planning on doing. So as Todd mentioned, this is the Western Northridge Storm Drainage Improvement Project. And what we're considering as Western Northridge is the watershed area encompassed by Falls of the Neuse Road, all the way down to Hunting Ridge Road, up here through up next to the Northridge Golf Course, and up near Fiesta Way. So for those who are familiar with this area, you will know that over the past couple of years, we've had a couple of storm events, and there's been frequent flooding on Harpsmill Road and Gristmill Road, and on Tambark Way. This figure here shows what we call the watershed or the drainage area going to the existing pipe system. I wanted to highlight, when you're looking at this figure, if you see all of the purple shaded area, that purple shaded area is representing the amount of what we call impervious, or the really hard surfaces such as buildings, driveways, sidewalks, that when it rains, it, instead of water infiltrating into the ground, it hits that hard surface and runs off and contributes to the stormwater runoff heading towards the pipe system that we currently have in the ground. Looking at this map, you'll notice the largest concentration of the impervious watershed area can be found here on Harpsmill Road and in kind of the upper parts or the higher elevations of the watershed. All of that water then follows the natural drainage paths to the existing pipe systems, which range from, on the downstream end, a 42-inch pipe, which is close to about a 4-foot, about a 3.5-foot diameter pipe, going all the way to a 36-inch or a 3-foot diameter pipe. Up near Tambark Way, you're looking at about a 30-inch or a 2.5-foot inch, 30-inch pipe or 2.5-foot diameter pipe system. So one of the reasons that we are seeing a lot of this overland flow during the storm events is the existing pipes through this alignment is too small to carry all of that stormwater runoff. So one goal of the project is to evaluate the effectiveness of this existing system and identify which pipe systems need to be upsized to handle this runoff flow. So the first steps we took, and you might have seen this over the past couple of months, as we had a survey team that went out there and took survey elevations of the existing pipe system and the surrounding topography. So we had surveyors go and measure the pipe diameter, pipe type, and also channel width, channel depth, so we can understand how much water a channel can handle and feed into a pipe system, and how much water that pipe system can handle. We've also surveyed the adjacent topography, so if the channel or pipe system can't handle that rainfall, we have a good idea of where that water will flow, and we'll feed that information into a hydraulic model. So these pictures that we're looking at is from late last year, from November 12th, 2020, where we had about 3 inches of rain. And it gives, I think these pictures give a good idea of the amount of water and the amount of flow that we can see through this existing system with 3 inches of rain. And while 3 inches of rain, it is a lot of water, it's pretty common to get 3 inches of rain during the summer thunderstorm event. So in order for our team to evaluate the effectiveness of the existing pipe system, we want to understand, when you have 3 inches of rain or more or higher, how does that flow interact and behave within the system? So we had these pictures that we looked at, where we have a good idea of what 3 inches of rain looks like. However, we also want to know, what does flooding look like during a bigger storm event, such as what we call and consider a 10-year storm event, or more specifically, a 10% annual chance event. So that is, statistically speaking, right, that a 10% chance of this storm occurring in any given year. For the city of Raleigh, where it's located, NOAA has determined that the 10% annual chance event is 5 inches of rainfall over a 24-hour period. So we don't have an opportunity to see 5 inches of rainfall over a 24-hour period a lot. We have to take it and put it into a mathematical model, or hydrologic and hydraulic model, for us to get an idea of what are the extents of flooding for this pipe system should we have 5 inches of rain. So this slide shows the results of this hydraulic model. And it shows the results in the form of like a heat map. So very similar to when you're looking at like the radar for weather, where different colors indicate different intensities. The heat map developed for this hydraulic model shows flooding depth as represented by different colors. So for the reds and yellows, for all the reds, it's about 5 foot of flooding depth. The yellows are about 2 foot of flooding depth. The greens and the aqua is about 1.5 to about 1.25 flooding depth. And then the blues are about 1/2 foot or 6 inches of flooding. So in looking at this map, kind of gives a good overall picture from the existing pipe system about how, how well can the pipes carry or not carry this flow, and what happens when the water goes up over land, and how does it flow over land, and perhaps how does it impact any of the existing homes. Also, one of the questions that we want to understand is, in addition to impacting existing homes, how does it also impact roadways? So if we zoom in to a particular area like Harpsmill Road, we get a pretty good granular understanding of saying, okay, well, in a 10-year storm event, when the peak of the storm is happening and we have the maximum amount of flooding, we can expect to see between 1.5 to 1.25. So that's going to be about 18 inches to 12 to 18 inches of flooding on Harpsmill Road. And that's quite a bit of flooding. And that's pretty, Harpsmill Road is a pretty good, it's a pretty good hill. It's pretty steep. So you can imagine if somebody's driving down the steep road and there's about 1 foot, 12 inches of water, that could be pretty dangerous. In addition, the modeling indicates that as water is flowing up here near 7309 Harpsmill Road, it hits for the water that can't go into the pipe system, it goes up and around the house, most likely impacting the garage, flowing around the house, flowing across Harpsmill, and jumping the curb and flowing down to 7312 Harpsmill Road. Moving downstream on Gristmill Road, we see a similar pattern take place where when all the water can't get into the pipe system, it overflows, flows down the alignment of the pipe system, flows into the gristmill. Looking at the coloring pattern, we can still see about 1.5 foot, about 12 inches to 18 inches of water sitting on gristmill. And again, with the limited line of sight as you go around the curve in gristmill, you can imagine that could be a pretty dangerous situation in the middle of a storm event. In addition to looking at the 10% annual chance event, which if you remember, that was about 5 inches, we also want to look at what happens during a very large storm event. One that we considered, you probably heard the terminology of the 100-year storm. We'll use the nomenclature of the 1% annual chance event. Again, that is 1%. There's a 1% chance of this storm occurring in any given year. So, for City Raleigh, for where we're located, NOAA has indicated about 7.5 inches over a 24-hour period is classified as a 1% annual chance event. So you can imagine if we get 7.5 inches within the Western Northridge pipe system, we see a lot more of the reds and yellows and even some of the greens than we did on the previous map. So the flooding is definitely more severe and deeper, and there's a lot more water flowing next to homes and flowing over Harpsmill and Gristmill Road and even on Tanbrook Road. So This is one of the things we're going to focus on, especially looking at Tanbark Road, and recognizing that there's several cul-de-sacs. We want to make sure that people have access, ingress and egress, who can get in and out of cul-de-sacs during flood events as well. So all the things we're considering as we are evaluating this existing system and looking for ways to improve it. So zooming back into Harpsmill Road for the 1% annual chance event. Again, this is about 7.5 inches of rainfall. You can see that Harpsmill Road has quite a bit of flooding depth, about 2 feet, 24 inches of flooding on Harpsmill, which nobody would be able to drive through 2 feet. In fact, I don't recommend anybody drive through any flooded water. And you can also see how homes such as at 7309 and 7312 on Harpsmill Road are the amount of flood depths that are impacted during this large storm event. Continuing downstream, we see again a similar story at Gristmill Road. We're looking about 2 feet of flooding on Gristmill Road, and upstream of that, in some of the adjacent homes, 7301, 7300, being impacted during this large storm event. So I'm sure many folks on this call who have lived in the neighborhood can say, yeah, I have seen this type of flooding quite a bit. But this is a picture taken back from back on September 1st, 2013, long before we were considering wearing masks all the time. In fact, I remember the storm event when I was actually working for another consulting firm. I remember going out here and taking pictures back in 2013, September 1st, of the flooding. We're looking at Gristmill Road and looking at the flooding extents. So this is 7300 Gristmill Road. And you can see how the water flows over the road and flows down to the channel. One of the things to note, which I thought was interesting, is you can see the driveway here at 7300 and the extent of water flooding. Now, looking back through the records at the rainfall depth, this flood event was actually only considered a 10% annual chance event. So you go look at the maps that the model maps that we had for the 10% annual chance event, and you look at the driveway, and sure enough, let me flip back. If the water level is getting up here on the driveway, you can see where the driveway is dry and where it's wet. You go flip to these flood depth maps, and sure enough, here's the driveway where it gets flooded. So it's really consistent with some of the modeling results we're getting for the 10% annual chance event. So like I said, the first step was for us to understand, well, how does the existing system behave? So now that we have a good idea of how it behaves, we can start looking at ways to upsize the system or different types of improvements we can make to meet some of the city's goals and their design standards for improvement. So one of the first design goals is to provide what we call a 10-year level of service, or what that means is in a 10% annual chance event, we don't want any of the road crossings to flood. And that is looking at Tanbark Way, Harpsmill Road, Gristmill Road. So what does the pipe system and what does the storm drainage infrastructure need to look like? So when we do have a 10% annual chance event, we're not getting flooded water on the roadway where people can still drive back and forth during a storm event. One of the second design goals is to reduce structural flooding to homes when possible for the 100-year event or for the 1% annual chance event, for that large storm event. We're going to keep that goal in mind to help reduce structural flooding wherever we can and when it's possible. So with those design goals in mind, we have laid out some proposed improvements to the existing storm drainage system. A lot of these improvements are upsizing the existing pipe and its current alignment. But I will say that the proposed infrastructure that we're about to show through this presentation is based on preliminary modeling, and it is subject to change as the design development becomes finalized, as we walk through the next steps of easement acquisitions, public outreach, and get some more design information in play. So this right now is just the current direction that we're heading based upon our preliminary modeling. So looking at this existing pipe system, starting downstream, we are looking at upsizing the existing 42-inch pipe or existing 3.5-foot diameter pipe and making it and converting it to a box culvert. So near Gristmill Road, the box culvert would be about a 4x6 or 5x7, so a 4-foot high, 6-foot wide, or a 5-foot high, 7-foot wide box culvert. Up on the northern section, which is still under preliminary consideration, we're looking at upsizing the system from a 42-inch to a 54-inch pipe. So to about 3.5-foot to about 4.5-foot diameter pipe. Continuing west, we're continuing upstream. We're looking at replacing or upsizing the existing 30-inch pipe to a 4-foot high by 6-foot wide box culvert through Harpsmill Road. And then continuing between these two homes as a 72-inch pipe. And then working our way upstream on Tanbark, replacing this 36-inch pipe with a 54-inch pipe, a 3-foot diameter with a 4.5-foot diameter, and replacing this 30-inch with a 48, or replacing a 2.5-foot with a 4-foot diameter pipe of pine bark. So with these proposed improvements, we put those into the model as well to kind of take a look at, well, how well do these proposed improvements meet the overall project goals? So looking at the 10% annual chance event, again, this 10% chance of this storm occurring in any given year, we do have reduced flooding in Harpsmill Road and no flooding on Tanbark and Gristmill Road. So just as a reminder, this was the existing conditions system for the 10% annual chance event. With our proposed condition, you'll see that those heat maps, those flooding depths that have been eliminated, have gone away on Harpsmill Road, Tanbark, and Gristmill Road, and on Pine Bark as well. So this proposed system does provide one of the city's objectives of providing a 10 level service on these main roadways. And kind of zooming into the Harpsmill Road pipe section, you'll see that with these proposed improvements, again, this is a 72-inch pipe going to a 4-foot high by 6-foot wide box culvert down Harpsmill Road. We no longer have substantial flooding or any type of flooding on Harpsmill for the 10% annual chance event. Just as a point of clarification, again, that's about 5 inches of rainfall. So if it rains about 6 inches of rainfall, then you probably will see flooding on Harpsmill Road, or especially for bigger storm events, you'll see flooding as well. Again, moving downstream, the pipe system in here will be big enough to intercept and capture all the flow from the channel coming in from the northern section and through this western section into this Y. We are looking at taking the system and moving it on Gristmill Road to combine all the public infrastructure within the public right of way, and then continue it going back down to the channel. Again, showing that in a 10% annual chance event, this proposed pipe system does provide a 10-year level service on Harpsmill Road. Now, okay, that was one of the project objectives. The second project objective is, hey, let's look at, hopefully we can reduce structural flooding as much as possible during a 100-year or a 1% annual chance event. One of the things you'll notice as we start working through these floodplain maps is that during one of these major storm events, we will still continue to experience flooding throughout the neighborhood. We can't design a pipe system big enough to drain the 100-year storm event. So just as a reminder, here is the heat map or the flooding depth map that we were looking at for the existing conditions and the 1% annual chance event. Now, if we look at the proposed conditions, we still do see flooding, but the colors are no longer in the red and orange at the 5 or 4 or even 3 foot depths, but rather we see a lot more of the teal and the blues and ranging from flooding depths to about 1.5 foot all the way to about 2 to 3 inches. Zooming into Harpsmill Road for the 1% annual chance event, we have reduced the amount of flooding in Harpsmill Road to about 12 inches. However, there still will be, we will still expect to see flooding through the system in a 1% annual chance event. You'll also notice that we still see overland flooding in one of these low storm events. Even with this upsizing of the pipe system, we still see overland flooding occurring at 7309 and 7312 Harpsmill Road for these low storm events. I will note that the city recognizes that these homes will be impacted by these flooding events and will work with the property owners if they wish to sell or give part of the property to the city. That's something, that's a conversation that can happen with the city. Continuing downstream, again, we will see that Harpsmill Road will still experience some flooding during the 1% annual chance event, but we do see a lot of potential flooding or flood extents around some of the homes at 7301 and 7300 have been significantly improved. Even though you see a little bit of gray, that's very negligible. So we do see some significant structural flooding improvement with this proposed system. Todd, in his introduction, did mention some of the schedule. I will just kind of rehash that, just kind of review what we have completed to date. So I mentioned over the past couple months, you've probably seen a survey team out taking surveys of the existing pipe system and topography that allowed us to be able to generate the maps that we just looked at. In addition to the survey team, we also had a geotechnical team. So you might have seen a drill rig out on Harpsmill Road and Harpsmill Road. We needed to perform a geotechnical investigation to make sure that the pipe system would not be hitting bedrock. If we have to put a pipe system in bedrock, it becomes very expensive, and we had, very difficult to do. Luckily, most of the proposed pipe system is above the measured bedrock. And this past month, we have been working on the modeling results and generating the maps and the preliminary alignments that we're talking about today. Some of the next steps you can be expecting for this project is looking at the community outreach. Todd and I definitely want to reach out to impacted property owners, review and discuss with property owners this proposed alignment, proposed pipe system, then proposed improvements that we can see in the properties. and make changes and as needed based upon this public output. Based on this public outreach and input property owners have. We'll take the opportunity to finalize the model and the design plans. And as Todd mentioned, once we finalize the design plans, we'll start working to have a second public meeting, public outreach meeting, which we're shooting to have at the end of this year. And we'll also start working on the easement acquisitions, as Todd mentioned. And that will, once we can acquire and get a good path on the easement acquisitions, we'll wrap up the final design, work on permitting. That process typically takes about 3 to 6 months, in conjunction with the easement acquisition that again takes about 6 to 12 months. Once we have those items completed, we'll put the project out to bid and work to get a publicly bid contractor to start construction, with the targeted construction start date around mid to late 2022. Again, this is our overall project schedule. I will say that this time frame can vary based upon multiple project factors that we're still going to be working through. So I want to take an opportunity to kind of talk about what people can expect during construction in a residential area. While construction is, albeit at the end of 2022, it's always helpful to start getting an idea of what type of impacts people will be experiencing to install these proposed improvements that we're discussing. So the pictures we're going to walk through are actually local pictures from City of Raleigh projects within and around some that are close to Western Northridge that are showing different components of what to expect. So here on the left-hand side, you can see a black pipe, and that black pipe is actually a water line. So we'll have to, for Western Northridge, to install some of the proposed improvements, we will have to replace sections of the sewer line and water line to put in the new pipe system. During the design process, we're going to work through construction sequencing steps to minimize impacts to utilities such as water, sewer, power. So when the contractor is installing this proposed alignment, they're keeping utilities accessible to the public as best we can. On here, on the right-hand side, this photo is showing about a 36-inch pipe system going in the street. So you'll see trench boxes. You'll see, depending on the depth of the pipe system, we'll have to cut into the street, put in the pipe, backfill it, and replace the roadway on top. In addition to water lines, sewer lines, and small drainage pipe systems, we'll also be putting in some cases, some cast-in-place structures. So there's an example on the left-hand side of a cast-in-place junction box. And on the right-hand side is one of those box culverts that I was talking about. So if we're planning on putting in a 4x6 or a 5x7 box culvert, it's going to look very similar to what we're seeing on the right-hand side. In addition to putting in box culverts, we'll also have to put in head walls. And due to the size of these head walls, especially if we're putting in box culvert or 72-inch head walls, we're going to have to put in these cast in place. We'll have to frame up, put in rebar, pour concrete, and let it cure. And of course, since we're working in a residential area and some of our pipe alignments are going between homes, we will have situations where we'll have excavators and construction right up near the edge of homes. We'll do what we can to make it clear to the contractors and outline it in the plans that they'll have to protect all the existing infrastructure and existing homes. Even in some cases where we have to put in foundation protection if we're digging next to home foundations. So to kind of recap, the next steps is, Todd and I are going to reach out for individual property coordination to review our proposed alignment. And we're going to start working on the final design development and start the process of requesting property and easement acquisitions so we can have the necessary easements in place for temporary construction easements, with permanent drainage easements, so that we can work towards the ultimate construction date. So with that said, I will open up the floor for questions. Do want to bring everybody's attention to the public input webpage, which is publicinput.com/W Northridge Stormwater Project. In addition to the city webpage as well. Well, Todd, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mark, Jennifer, and Alex for the work on your presentation. It was very informative. I've received a couple of questions from attendees, from Ms. Bonnie White. To all of us, it was how realistic is the late 2022 construction start? Ms. White, I'd have to say that at this point that is an estimate, but I feel it's a fair one at this point. Really, the biggest question mark as we move through the design phase again is really this easement acquisition process. It's a huge opportunity. We're dealing with between 20 and 30 different property owners with different easement limits, locations, that sort of thing. And really all we can do is kind of draw some numbers on a wall and kind of throw a dart at it, and through experience, put a number on how long that's going to take, and that is worked into that projected start date for construction. Do we have any other questions? Mr. Delbert Gay, would you please explain the general size and type of pipe that will be used on 7208 Tanbark Way? Thanks. Mark, do you want to address pipe type and size along Tanbark?
I will. I will. Give me 1 second to flip to along Tanbark. What was that address again?
It was 7208 Tanbark.
7208 Tanbark. Yes, right now, the proposed plan is to have a 4-foot diameter concrete pipe. So just as a point of perspective, that this is kind of a good picture of if you want to think about a 4-foot diameter concrete pipe being installed within the roadway. That is going to be on the near the intersection of Pine Bark and Tan Bark. So that's going to be collecting a 4-foot diameter pipe going up Pine Bark to collect a lot of this flow, and then going across Tan Bark and emptying out into this channel. And then downstream of this channel, we're looking at pitting right now a 72-inch, which is a 6-foot diameter concrete pipe. So I think hopefully I answered that pipe size and type question. Todd, are you muted?
A question from Carol Ann Willingham. It says, how is the proposed commercial development at Falls of Noose and Harps Mill expected to impact the project? Mark, I believe you've looked at that.
We have, yes. So the proposed development will have to satisfy a lot of have to satisfy the city's stormwater requirements for new development, which is pre and post control. So with those developments coming in, and if they are maintaining, or excuse me, if they are keeping the same amount of impervious percentages, that would be the equivalent amount of runoff volume that we are seeing today. So we're not expecting a major change within the overall hydrology as a result of that development.
Mark, this is Dave Kiker. Would it be fair to say we're using future conditions land use to size the proposed pipe system?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So, when we put together this model to help us understand the runoff rainfall characteristics, we did look at saying, hey, if we are assuming for this watershed that it is built out based upon this current zoning, that is what are the flows that it's generating, and that is the flows that we're looking at through this model. And that is, David, to your point, what we consider the future condition built out.
Thanks, Mark. Ms. Bonnie White's lives at 7217 Pine Bark Court, and she's curious how we're going to maintain access to that road with the improvements. Chances are, Ms. White, that during construction, we'll probably have to neck traffic down to one lane as we're working on one side of the street or the other. We'll have flagmen in place and signs and lights in place to alert folks that we're working in that area and to proceed with caution. But there will be allowances for through traffic. Ken Cobb, glad to see he's here this evening. Several discussions with Mr. Cobb over the past few months. What will the width of the open channel be, specifically between Harpsmill and Gristmill? Mark, do you want to take a shot at that?
And just to clarify, we're looking at the channel width between Harpsmill and Gristmill.
Correct.
This channel right here. Looking at the existing conditions flooding, the existing channel width looks like it can handle. I mean, it appears it can handle the 10% annual chance event and handle a lot of that flow. So we're not looking at necessarily expanding that channel width any more than what it currently is today. What happens is it has all that flow going through the open channel, and then it hits that 36-inch pipe, and then just all kind of constricts down and then overtops the road. So the constriction point's not really at the channel per se, but at the downstream pipe system. So we're not really looking at necessarily expanding that channel.
Thanks again, Mark. Any other questions concerning the project? We've had some good questions thus far. Thank you for those. I hate to sound like an auctioneer, going once, going twice, going 2.5 times. All right, that's 3. I guess in closing, I just want to drive home this part of the project that can really impact when we start construction. And that's the easement acquisition part of the project. We really ask that you carefully consider and your options with those easements and expedite expedite your end of the process in order for us to get the easements that we need. Simply losing, one easement could potentially mean we can't do the project. So we're really going to try and, get everything that we need well ahead of time from when we plan to start construction. My contact information is being shown. It's at the end of the presentation. It's currently on the screen. As well, you can visit raleighNC.gov. At the header of that page, you can click on projects, and under project names, you can search Western Northridge, and the project page will come up. We will have a link again to the replay of this presentation if you wish to go back and look at it again. Is there anything else any of the other panelists may want to add before we walk out of here?
This is Dave Kiker again. Great job on the presentation, by the way. I would just point out that we're still in design. If Todd's done a good job reaching out to the residents, and Mark has too. If you haven't spoken with Todd and you want to meet with him, reach out. This design is not final. That's been presented today, and they're looking to get your feedback, and they very much appreciate you all attending and spending some time with them tonight. But Todd's ready to listen to you, and that's all I've got. So,
thanks, David. Again, I am available if questions come up during that easement acquisition process. I can help you visualize where those limits are going to lie with a little bit of work in the field. But again, in closing, thanks for attending. We appreciate the questions. And we look forward to actually seeing some of you live at the second public meeting. Hopefully we'll be without masks and be able to be face to face. Thanks again, folks. I look forward to seeing you.